Hello, BookTube. I'm back with another video regarding H.G. Wells. Last week, for the first story, we read, or I reread, the Chronic Argonauts. And it was a time travel story. And I discussed it in a previous video. I'll leave that link down below. But I thought I'd add a few other things, sort of some contextual background, I guess, or biographical background for Wells around the time it was written. And Wells, as we know, was born in 1866, September 21st. In 1884, he was 18 years old, and he received a government-funded scholarship to the normal school in South Kensington. And sorry, I'm glancing at notes here to make sure I get everything correct. It was a school, like almost like a teacher training college, I guess it would be called now. And it was created by Thomas Huxley, who actually taught Wells in some sciences, chemistry and biology. And he got in with very high marks, and he maintained for the first 2 years pretty well, very good marks. However, in his third year, he began to be distracted. Distracted by a number of things. Women, one of them. And in particular, he moved around to lodgings, but then he moved to his aunt's lodging, and he took a shine to his cousin. But she didn't really fulfill his needs, let's put it that way. So he was frustrated. And also in that year, he neglected his studies, the final year in 1886 to 87. He neglected his studies for one of the reason, falling in love, basically. But also, too, he started with some friends from the South Kensington Debating Society, started a magazine called Science School Journal. And he edited it, and that's where he placed a number of his very early stories under pseudonym Septimus Brown. One of them was called A Talk with Gerald Talpa, sort of science fiction apparently, and A Tale of the 20th Century, and this was early 1887. Also around that time, he was at a lecture from one of his fellow students on the fourth dimension, and apparently that's where he got the idea for the time travel story, the Chronic Argonauts. It doesn't look like he started writing it at that time, but he graduated, and he needed work, so he got a job, teaching position, at the Holt Academy near Wrexham on the border between North Wales and England. And he sort of settled in there, but he was injured badly playing a football game with the boys. The doctor said it was first a crushed kidney because he was passing blood in his urine. But that probably was unlikely because the pain disappeared and the blood disappeared. He wanted to go back home to where his mother was in Up Park to recover, but if he did, then he would forfeit second half of his fees for the year, or pay, which would have come out at Christmas time in 1887, which was £20. And again, this is 1887. So he went back to work ill, but then he started coughing up a lot of blood, and then the doctor said it was tuberculosis, but probably wasn't. It could have been pleurisy, but he was sort of, he's plagued by ill health, and he finally did go home. But while he was there, he did write he wrote quite a bit of stuff. Well, and then destroyed it. There was one. Let me see here. It was 35,000. Well, like he could have started it at, well, he was at the Holt Academy, but he finished it when he was back with his mother, his parents, or his family place in Up Park. 35,000 word novel, Lady Frenchards or something like that, companion. But he destroyed it. So, and probably that's where he finished, if not started, the Chronic Argonauts. And then it appeared in the his old school magazine in 3 installments. But while he was, he apparently wrote a sequel to it because friends had asked him about it. You can't just leave it there. But he wrote it, but it was never published. And we'll talk more about this when we get to the Time Machine, because there was like 6 iterations before the final, or actually the 6th, probably, the Time Machine as it was published. So those are more related to the Time Machine than the Chronic Argonauts per se. But while he was at his like recovering, I guess, at his mother's place in Up Park, he went to visit a friend in April 1888, who was in the potteries on Stoke-on-Trent, and he conceived the idea of a massive melodrama of the potteries, sort of akin to The Mysteries of Paris by Eugene Sue. It doesn't look like anything really came of this, but he was writing a lot. That's the thing. During this time, a lot of it didn't get published, but he was practicing, I guess you would say, his craft. And a lot of his early stuff, as I say, it just doesn't exist anymore. But the Chronic Argonaut is quite interesting, as I say, I'll leave the link below to the video from last week. And there are bits and pieces that are not, you could tell it's an early work, but there are areas that are extremely good, I think, and I mentioned those. But yeah, so that was sort of the context around him writing the Chronic Argonauts. And the interesting thing is, he got into a really good school with Thomas Huxley, as his professor. And then, we'll continue on. I'll be reading another very short story either today or tomorrow, and discussing it tomorrow. It's a very, very short story. It's the second one on the list. And I will copy and paste the list again down below, the sort of order we're reading it in. But there is no sort of set time. I'm going to be reading stuff as and when. This one that I'll be reading tomorrow is a very short story. I might try to do one a week, but there's no guarantee for that. But anyway, if you've been reading along and read the Chronic Argonauts, I'd love to know what you think of it. I know some have chimed in on the previous one, but as I say, it's an interesting story, and we will revisit it because of the Time Machine when we get there. But we have whole years and plus of writing of short stories before we get there. So that will take several months, let's put it that way, many months before we get to the Time Machine. Take care, BookTube. Thank you very much.